Hello and welcome to Will It Roll. This week's theme is movie and TV cars, and we start with the GMC Vandura, or the A-Team van, as many of you will know it by. Trying to make this car sort of like a replica in Forza 4, and a lot of these is pretty difficult because they don't quite have the right parts. For example, with this van, the wheels are wrong. I tried to get as close as I could. The body kit is fairly accurate, I think. Except for the front bumper doesn't quite have the bull bars. Also, the van should be a lot lower, which I could do, but then that would mess up for trying to roll it, so I didn't. But it's a fairly close replica. The paint job I got from the storefront, I could have made it myself, probably. It's a fairly simple one, but it would have taken me forever. Or I just didn't really have the time. Anyway, rolling this thing, well, I wasn't expecting it to be too hard. I was expecting it to be much like the Transit, or possibly like the Transit. I mean, it's going to have a high centre of mass because it's a van, it's tall, it weighs quite a lot. So it should roll over fairly easily. The car, like the higher the centre of mass, the easier it is to roll them. However, it is very, very slow. How the A-Team ever caught anybody in this thing, I will never know because it is incredibly, incredibly slow. It's got like 160 odd horsepower for a £5,500 vehicle. So yeah, it's not fast. And as you can see, it wasn't really interested in rolling, standard that is. Off this curb over here is where I was having the most luck, which is unusual. But still, that's nowhere near rolling. So it was to the upgrade shop for the suspension, as I do an impressive little slide. The A-Team would be proud, I hope. And then I managed to kind of stall it a little bit. Ignore that didn't happen. Anyway, yes, it was to the upgrade shop for suspension. It was raised and stiffened. Now, I was expecting there could be problems, much like the Transit. If it does fall over, it could end up on its side and get stuck, and that's not really a proper roll. But as you can see, it wasn't looking particularly spectacular so far. Nope, that's not really going. It looks much, much slower now than it felt when you were driving it. I mean, it felt slow when I was driving it. It looks really slow on this replay. Jesus, yeah, it's not a fast car, I'm going to be honest. However, it wasn't long before suddenly it kind of fell over in a very weird way, very sort of slow motion-y roll. But there we go. I was surprised by that. It was a little bit of help from the fence, I think. But I think it probably would have gone over even if the fence wasn't there. I was quite impressed by the Vandura. It didn't take too much modification. It didn't take a silly engine or silly amounts of power to actually get it to do anything. So yeah, I'm fairly pleased with that one. Of course, it wouldn't be a movie cars thing without a James Bond Aston Martin. Of course, we have to use the Aston Martin DB5, which is probably the most iconic and most well-known of the Bond cars. Now, the car in the films, it's been in loads of different films. The car is fairly standard. I mean, there are things like ejector seats, changeable number plates, and that sort of thing, but we can't put them in Forza because this isn't that sort of a game. So we've just got a nice standard one here. I do like the DB5. I think it's a fantastic looking car. Very expensive car. A little bit, well, I'd say a little bit difficult to drive. It's quite an old car, so it's never going to drive as fantastically as modern Grand Tourers and sports cars do. Now, this is problematic when it comes to trying to get it to roll because the suspension is very, very soft. It's you can see as it comes around here how much the suspension is compressing, and it's just never going to get it to roll standard. And the problem with the suspension, like as it compresses quite a lot, is that this car is relatively low, as it is anyway, and as the suspension compresses, the body is actually catching on the floor, which makes it doubly hard to even get it to roll. If you see here, it's pretty too fast for you to actually see, so I'm going to slow it down and rewind it a little bit. You can see that the side skirts is actually catching on the floor. There we go, as it goes around the corner. So yeah, you're never going to get that to roll when it's doing that, because yeah, this is not going to work. So it was off to the upgrade shop again for the Aston Martin. Again, it was fiddled with the suspension parts to make it a little bit easier to roll. And this is, I think, the second attempt. And there we go, fairly straightforward with the Aston Martin. Unfortunately, it doesn't have an ejector seat to self-right itself, so it's just going to have to sit there. That car didn't take very long at all. As soon as you put the suspension parts in, it's absolutely fine. Standard, you are never going to get it to roll. I don't even know if it would on the grass. Probably would if you handbrake it, but yeah, there's never going to roll standard anywhere else. Up next, we have another Bond car. This is a Lotus Esprit. Now, I am fully aware this is not the Esprit, the submarine one. It's not from that film. Unfortunately, Forza doesn't have the right generation of Esprit for that. This is from, I believe it's For Your Eyes Only, where he has one of these Esprits. The car from the film, I realised after doing all of this, is actually a slightly more browny orange than it is red, so I got the colour a little bit wrong. The wheels are also the wrong colour. They're supposed to be gold, but the wheels in the film car are stock wheels, and you can't paint stock wheels on Forza, which means that they're going to have to be sort of grey, silvery colour. And it's also supposed to have skis on sort of like the back windowy bit But that's not a mod for Forza. You can't put that in your cars. So anyway, we go on to trying to roll it, and what do you think? It's a very wide, very low British sports car. It is never going to roll standard. I honestly wasn't expecting this thing to even lift wheels off the ground. Surprisingly, it did a little bit. But yeah, this is going to be a bit like the DeLorean. It's not going to go standard. Speed-wise, it is like a D-class car. I mean, it's not too slow, but compared to sort of modern, even modern sports cars, it is pretty slow. So yeah, you're never going to get this thing to roll standard. So upgrade shop again, suspension. Still, I was expecting it to be pretty tricky. In all honesty, I was expecting to have to put some silly big engine in it, probably the V8 Esprit engine in it, to even get it to consider rolling. But it's actually sort of looking a little bit more promising there. I think that's sort of 4th or 5th attempt, and it's starting to sort of think a little bit about rolling over. This one surprised me a bit sort of further down the line, and it was looking even more probable. That was quite on 2 wheels, I have to say, for the Esprit. And after, I don't know, it's about 10 minutes, I think, of driving, eventually it's gone. The wall almost screwed that over, but it's kind of now twitching on the floor. Forza, make your mind up what you're going to do with it. Just leave it. No. Oh well. Anyhow, the Esprit is on its roof. That was easier than I expected, but I think I got a little bit lucky with that one. So this episode hadn't taken too long, so I thought, we'll get a couple more cars and see how that goes. How silly that was of me. Up next, we have a Buick Regal GNX. Now this is, oh god, can I remember the guy's name? Chick Higgs, I think, is the guys from Cars, the animated film. It's a Buick Regal, so we're going to have a go with this one. This was Daniel's idea, actually, and I quite like it. It's something a little bit different, something a little bit unexpected. As far as, well, it was an animated car, so it's not really realism goes, but the paint job is fairly accurate. I had to get it from the storefront because I just didn't have time. This is quite a complicated paint job. It's supposed to have more stickers on it, but there's so many stickers on the car in the film that you just couldn't do it on Forza. The wheels, I think, are fairly accurate. There should be stickers on the windows and stuff, but again, something you can't really do in Forza. Now, of all the cars we have here, the Buick is technically the fastest. It's a C-Class, it has the highest PI. Doesn't drive very well, though. It's one of the worst handling cars I think I've had on here. It's really not particularly good. It also has very soft suspension. I mean, it's a relatively old American car. I think it's from 1987, the one in Forza is anyway. But again, it has the very soft suspension from the likes of the muscle cars and the Aston Martin we've had here. So standard-wise, it wasn't really interested particularly. It wasn't lifting a wheel sort of off the ground. Yeah, I don't think you'd roll this one standard either. It's just, the suspension's too soft. As you can see, that was about the best as I got it standard and managed to find a wall. The brakes weren't fantastic, the handling wasn't fantastic on it. Not particularly my favourite car. Now, when I did the upgrades on it, normally it makes the cars a little bit difficult to drive. This one is damn near impossible to drive. I don't normally show that bit, but I just couldn't get it stopped or turned for the first corner like a normal car. It was really, really bad to drive. I'm not sure why in particular on this car. I mean, of course it's going to make it a little bit worse because you're messing about with all the suspension and stuff, but why it's made it much worse on this car than everything else, I don't really know. As far as making it roll goes, well, it was looking a little bit more promising. There we go. But there's a weird thing with this car. I can kind of explain. Basically what's happening is much like the Subaru 22B we had. It's going on its side, it goes on 2 wheels, it goes quite a long sort of way on 2 wheels, and then something stops it. Now, I was thinking it was the bodywork, much like with the Aston Martin where the bodywork was catching. I was expecting it was probably some sort of bodywork thing on here. So, went to this camera angle, this is the best view I can get on it, and we're going in sort of super slow motion. We're having a look. It's really hard to tell because of the way the camera is, but it doesn't actually look like the bodywork's touching the floor. It's really, really hard to say because it's just not quite at the right place. But I don't think the bodywork was touching the floor, so I don't know what was stopping this car. Absolutely no clue on this one. I tried for quite a while, sort of like 15-20 minutes I think with this thing, trying to get it to roll. How is it not going over at that sort of angle? Blooming Buick. I don't know with this car. It's a really weird one. So it's off to the upgrade shop again. More power was needed. Well, possibly. That's what I tried anyway. I put some turbos in it, or put upgraded turbos. I think it already had turbos in it. First attempt was still... it was on its side. But God, this car was such a pain. It really, really was. We try again. Nope, that's not going. Now, the problem with more power and more speed is it made the handling problems even greater. And I found the tyre bundle there because it just doesn't turn at all now. And it doesn't really stop very well either. So it was quite difficult to drive. Luckily, it wasn't long before I eventually got lucky. And it kind of took a lucky bounce off the fence. I am not sure if the fence hadn't been there, if that would have rolled. On the bonnet view, it felt like it was going to come back down just before it hit the fence. But from the replay, it looks like it might have rolled over, so I don't know. But it certainly got a big help from that fence. It's the only time that fence has ever been useful. Is trying to roll this Buick. This is not a nice car to roll, and I can't really explain why it's particularly difficult to roll. But there we go. And we come to our final car now. Of course, a lot of people have wanted to see this one rolled for some time, so we're going to give it a go. It is the General Lee from Dukes of Hazzard, a 69 Dodge Charger. This is probably my favourite of all the classic muscle cars. Maybe the old Shelby GT500, the Eleanor Mustang. Maybe it'd be a tough decision between those two. On the subject of that, I would have loved to have had the Eleanor Mustang here, but it's not in Forza. So we can't use that one, I'm afraid. So people who are suggesting it, I'm sorry, I would have done, but it's not here. So we're going to have a go with the Dodge Charger. Now, as I said, I quite like this car. It is probably my favourite of the classic muscle cars. After this, I'm not so sure. This thing is... I'm just going to start off by saying this is the car that's taken the longest out of everything to roll. Standard, I wasn't expecting anything particularly spectacular. We had muscle cars before, I did a whole episode on muscle cars. None of them rolled standard. Wasn't expecting this one to either, as I have a little spin. Because the suspension on them is relatively soft. I mean, these cars are from the 60s. You know, it's got fairly old suspension. The suspension on these is fairly soft. And as we saw with the Aston Martin, when it's got very soft suspension, it's not going to roll. I may have had a bit of a clip of the tyre bundle there and done some pirouettes. Anyway, so I went out to the upgrade shop to put the suspension parts in, like I did with the previous muscle cars. Now, even with these parts, admittedly I may have missed the first corner. Again, handling actually was a problem with this car. Not quite as bad as the Buick, but it did sort of ruin what little handling there was. Even with the suspension parts, that was about as good as it got. Again, I can't really say why it was particularly bad in this car. You saw a standard, it wasn't even lifting a wheel off the ground. I mean, the Beetle is probably the only other car that was as uncooperative as this one. And again, tried and not much. We're going to get stopped. Please stop. There's a tyre wall. There we go. Just about managed to save it. I can't explain this one either. I mean, it is quite a big car. It is quite a wide car. But the other muscle cars were also fairly large. And we have a slide in the tyre wall. So yeah, I'm not really sure about that one. So after the upgrade shop again, more power again. For this one, I put the Viper V10 engine in it from the competition coupe. Because why the hell not? But it didn't work particularly well because more power equals a higher speed crash in this case, as it went straight into that blooming tyre bundle. This wasn't really doing very much. Normally, when you put more power in a car, you can't, because you can sort of take more momentum into the corner, you can get it to roll a little bit easier. Even a car like a Radical, that's very low, very wide, will roll through here because it's so fast. This one, it was, in fact, I'm not even sure if it didn't make it worse. It really just wasn't wanting to roll. And again, I still don't really know why. It's a bit of a weird one. We're going to hit the wall and please stop. And just about avoided the tyre bundle. Yeah, this wasn't a fun car. I'm going to be honest. I love Chargers. Maybe a little bit less after this sort of hour. And again, no, I'm not going to do that one in the tyre wall. Hello again. I'm pretty sure I spent more time in the tyres with this car that I did on two wheels. And we're going to have another go. What we're going to do, oh, a little bit better. That's the best that I got it. Like that. So it was again back to the upgrade shop. Now I took what I learnt with the Aventador, which was the other very uncooperative car, put a roll cage in it and put the wheel, was it negative camber? Yeah, it's negative camber when the wheels look broken. In fact, both cambers make the wheels look broken. And second attempt it went over. And there we go. So after however many hours it was, I spent with it beforehand, and it took like a minute with those upgrades. So if you want to make a car roll, apparently a roll cage and negative camber makes it roll very easily. I can't explain the physics of that one, but there we go. We have rolled 5 movie cars for you today. It's a very long edition of Will It Roll because there was a lot of different cars that I wanted to put into this one. Anyway, that is it for this episode, guys. So thank you very much for watching. As ever, in the comment section, leave your suggestions for either games you would like to see me do Will It Roll on. There are only so many that we can do, so many that I have, and it also has to be a bit of a challenge. You know, if you say GTA, well, I can roll cars very easily on there. Dirt 3, I've seen a few people suggest maybe. I might have a go with that one if I can figure out how the replay cameras would be good, if they would be good at all or not. Otherwise, leave your suggestions for themes that we can have a look at, and leave your suggestion for cars for those themes. I think that is about it. Now, while I remember, because I keep forgetting when I'm doing these recordings, I will put some links in the description. If you want to go have a look at Machinima UK, we have got a series on there in which we are recreating various film and TV show stunts in video games. I like the videos. I think they came out pretty well. People that seem to enjoy them. Some of you might have seen them. I clicked like on them, so it might have come up in your little subscribery sub box thing, whatever you want to call it. So go have a look at them and leave a like and a comment and stuff on them. And I think that is about it. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.